Marissa lived a quiet life, a neat house on the corner of a sleepy street, blinds always drawn, porch light glowing every night. She left each morning by 8:30 and returning just before dusk, her satchel swinging at her side as gracefully as she stepped. Neighbors saw her as polite but private, a woman who offered polite smiles, but little else. None of them knew her. The man in her attic thought he was the exception. He had broken in nearly a month ago, prying open a window one rainy night. He'd almost left when he saw how meticulous she was. Locks on every door, alarms on the windows. But the attic hatch had been his salvation. Dusty, cramped, but hidden. No one ever looked up. From above, he mapped her life. Every morning at 7:55, her alarm sounded. 3 soft beeps. She rose immediately, never snoozing. Shower for exactly 12 minutes. Coffee brewed at 8, 10 sharp, filling the house with a dark aroma that drove him mad with longing. She dressed with quiet precision. Slacks, blouse, shoes lined up neatly before slipping them on. By 8:27, she was out the door. And then the house was his. He descended the attic ladder with practiced silence, bare feet pressing into the carpet. He started cautiously at first, opening a drawer here, running a finger along her jewelry box, flipping through her books. But soon his confidence grew. He spread her dresses across the bed and lay in them, inhaling the scent she left behind. He tried on her lipstick in the bathroom, grinning at his reflection. He took long drinks from the glasses she left on the counter, relishing the faint imprint of her lips on the rim. At first, he told himself it was research. He needed to know her before he killed her. But the days stretched, and knowledge became hunger. He knew she cooked simple meals after work: chicken, vegetables, a glass of wine. He knew she liked to sit in the same chair in the living room to read before bed. He knew she always brushed her teeth for exactly 3 minutes, never less. He knew she slept on her side, facing the window, with the blanket pulled to her chin. Most of all, he knew her sounds: the creak of the stairs as she climbed them, the sigh she gave when she sank into bed, the rhythm of her breath as she drifted into sleep. Every night, he came down to watch her. Sometimes he lingered at the foot of the bed. Other times he stood close enough to see the faint flutter of her eyelids while she dreamt. He imagined the pillow pressed over her face, the knife against her throat, the way her body would jerk under his hands. But each time he held back. Waiting was sweeter. She never noticed, he thought. She never stirred, never suspected the shadow in her doorway. He congratulated himself for his patience, his cleverness. She was his to study, his to possess, his to destroy when the moment felt right. Then came the night of the wine glass. A simple, careless oversight on her part. She had left it half full on the counter before bed. He smirked, raised it to his lips, and drank deep. He liked the thought of sharing with her, tasting what she tasted. Satisfied, he crept once more to her bedside, savoring the sight of her pale face in the dark. He returned to the attic with the taste of wine on his tongue, his mind swirling with thoughts of how and when he would finally end her. But when his eyes opened again, the attic was gone. He was in the basement, bound clear plastic from floor to ceiling. And Marissa was waiting. Across the room, Marissa sat in a wooden chair, gray robe tied loosely at the waist. In the glow of the bulb, her face was calm, expressionless. "You're awake," she said softly. His throat worked. "Please, I knew you were here the moment you broke in." She rose, the robe whispering around her legs. You thought you were clever. But you're not the first. There are secret little cameras everywhere. I watched everything. Every time you touched my things. Every time you stood in my doorway. Every second you thought you owned me. She untied the robe's belt. The garment slipped from her shoulders and dropped to the floor. She stood naked before him, pale in the harsh light. I don't like to ruin good clothes, she said evenly, and I like to feel the warmth. From a steel table against the wall, she selected a scalpel, its blade polished and waiting. You thought you were a hunter, she said, stepping close, but you were always prey. Marissa was swift in her movements, quickly dropping beside him. The first cut was across his chest, shallow and deliberate. Blood welled, running down his ribs. His scream echoed against the plastic-covered concrete walls. She leaned down, pressed her lips to his ear, and whispered gently, Shh. I know it hurts, but you're strong. You'll make it through the next one. Then she cut again, deeper this time. Hours stretched into torment. She would flay strips of skin from his arms, then cradle his head against her chest as he sobbed, stroking his hair like a mother soothing a child. You're doing so well, she cooed. I'm proud of you. Then she would return to the table, choose another instrument, and begin again. Pliers to peel nails, a hammer to crack knuckles, clamps to squeeze flesh until it turned purple. Each session ended with her murmuring comfort into his ear, pressing her body against his shaking frame, her skin slick with his blood. When exhaustion overtook her, she laid him down on the plastic floor. She curled up beside him, naked, her limbs draped loosely across his ruined body. His blood soaked her skin, sticky and warm. She slept peacefully in it, her breathing slow, serene, as though she was sharing a bed with a lover. Then she woke and began again. Time dissolved in the basement. His world was agony, punctuated by her bizarre tenderness. She spoon-fed him water to keep him alive, sometimes wiping his forehead with a damp cloth, whispering, Rest. Rest, my sweet thing. We still have so much to do. Other times, she kissed his face before pressing the scalpel into his thigh. She whispered, I love this part, as she worked the blade under his skin, peeling it back to expose the meat beneath. His howls filled the room. She only smiled, humming softly. She recorded notes in a leather journal between sessions, cataloging his reactions like a scientist. Pain tolerance decreases after 48 hours without rest, she murmured one night, pen scratching. Subject cries faster when comforted first. Fascinating, when he begged for death, she placed her finger over his lips. Not yet, she whispered, pressing her forehead to his. We still have more time together. Don't ruin it by rushing days past. He no longer recognized himself, his body a lattice of wounds, his voice a rasping croak. She rested beside him after each session, arms curled around his broken frame, her face serene as though wrapped in the arms of a lover. Finally, when his body began to fail, she pressed a kiss to his cheek. 17, she whispered softly, almost mournfully. She took a bone saw from her tray and pressed it to his throat. His last scream died halfway, cut off by steel. When it was done, she stood in silence, chest rising evenly. No smile, no relief, no triumph, just the quiet satisfaction of finishing a task. The stillness she had been waiting for. Then she went to work. She dragged his slack frame across the plastic, humming softly, her bare feet sticky with half-dried blood. With practiced ease, She lifted him onto a heavy wooden table bolted to the far wall of the basement. Hooks hung above it, a relic of the house's long-abandoned root cellar. She secured his ankles, hoisted him upside down, and let gravity do the first part of the work, blood draining into a waiting barrel she had positioned beneath. The sound was a steady patter. When he was dry enough to handle, she began to cut. Not carelessly, never carelessly. Each limb was removed cleanly, at the joint, wrapped tightly in industrial plastic, then sealed in heavy black bags. Smaller parts, fingers, scraps of tissue, chunks of fat, went into a separate container. She would burn those later in the old metal drum behind her property, the one her neighbors assumed was for autumn leaves. The larger pieces had their own ritual. She packed them in a chest freezer that sat in the corner of the basement, hidden behind shelves of canned food. By morning, they would be frozen solid, easier to handle. Within the week, she would drive them, 2 bags at a time, out to the quarry an hour outside of town. Few people went there anymore. The water was deep, black, and swallowing. Once the bags sank, they never surfaced again. The blood barrels had their own solution. She kept a vat of lye in the shed, bought in bulk years ago under a false name. Poured over the congealed remains, it would eat away everything left behind. What didn't dissolve, she would scatter in the woods for the animals. Nothing wasted. By the time the basement was scrubbed, the body sealed and hidden, and the air smelling freshly cleaned, it was as though he had never existed. She gathered the soiled plastic into tight rolls, stored them in a locked bin marked yard supplies. Marissa showered slowly, letting the red spiral down the drain until her skin was pale and unmarked again. She dressed, poured herself a glass of fresh wine, and sat at her window. Across the street, the new neighbor wrestled a box through his front door, unaware of the woman watching him. Marissa sipped her drink, her lips curving faintly. 17 was gone. 18 would come soon.